What's going on, everybody? Evan here with Evan's Detailing and Polishing. I've got Nick Way here from Heber City, Utah. And honestly, I haven't been this excited in quite a while. I've been talking about making this video forever. Everybody wanted to know what steps to take to get to a mirror. And if you can see right here, this is a perfect mirror and reflection. I'm sure it looks like I can see it in the camera there, so I'm guessing you can see it at home. So this side over here, all we did was sanded 220, 320, 400 and got it as smooth as possible. This side over here, Nick sanded it. He's taking our advanced training course, and I had him sanded out to 600, but I always prove to everybody that you can cut out from 400. So I'm going to show you guys the steps of once you get to 400 or 600, how to get to a show finish. It is literally, let's just walk through it real quick.
Yeah.
2 steps of orange and brown,
Yep.
our regular brown. A step of yellow, well, we clean, aluminum polish, to clean in between the orange and brown and the yellow and brown.
Yeah.
And then we clean after the yellow and regular brown, and we go with a white untreated and a show brown. So we clean in between those 3 steps, and then we clean one more time after the show brown, really super light, and then we take most of the hand polish off with just a terry towel, and then we go into our show green, and then from show green we go to another softer white flannel with a purple compound just to get rid of the last little bit of hash marks. Now, if you were seeing this in real life, this right here has very, very minimal hash. The hash marks are super light. I don't even know if it's picking it up in the camera here. If you watch the preview of this video, you've seen the light hash marks. They're super light. Give that a day or 2 to cure out and harden, and those hash marks are going to be gone. And even then, if I take them out from underneath these LED lights, it's probably going to look absolutely perfect out in the regular sunlight. So I don't judge anything based on the LEDs. I judge it based on what it looks like outside and after it's had a day to cure. So I'm going to have Nick actually come over here and buff on this from 400, and we're going to kind of talk through it as we're going. So I'm just going to let this thing roll, and while we're talking about in between the first and second step, we may have to cut it 3 times with the orange and brown since we stopped at 400. But when we're done, you'll actually see this side will end up a little bit darker and richer than this side, which is hard to believe because this is pretty beautiful already. But this side here is actually going to get even a little bit darker and a little bit richer. So I wanted to show them that, part of the advanced training course. The guys that want to learn how to show polish, some guys just want to learn how to get faster. But Nick here actually wanted to learn how to take what he was doing to the next level. So as you can see, he's already ahead of the game. That is a perfect mirror here. This is honestly, if I had to tell you one of the shiniest pieces I've ever polished, this is right there with it. So he's learned a lot today already. Let's just jump right into it. First step is orange and regular brown. And all we're doing on this first step is trying to get some moisture into it. So as you watch, he's not going to be shooting for perfection on this step. All he's doing is lay compound down. So every 2 to 3 inches we're going to be laying compound on. The second pass we're going to use less compound, and then if we have to go a third pass, because if we see some pigtails, we'll go a third pass. The third pass should be absolutely perfect before we go to our yellow, because the yellow is just honestly lightening up our hash marks at that point. So we'll let Nick take over and we're good. All right, so first step here, we're going to start off with the orange buff and regular brown compound. we did was laid compound on. We're honestly not looking for perfection on this one. If I zoom in a little close here, you can see little pigtails all over the place. All we did was lay compound on to start getting moisture in there. We're honestly not looking to make this thing perfect yet. We're gonna start getting that on the second and possibly third pass, but honestly, I don't think we're gonna need a third pass. I think you're gonna get it in 2, because it's pretty well gone already, so it's probably not gonna take much. Sweet. So now if you look really close, there's not a single pigtail back in this thing. That's amazing. You see a little bit better depth than you did when we were at 600?
Yeah.
It's just a little darker and richer.
No, absolutely.
So
I can absolutely see the darkness.
yeah, I don't see
It's a little bit darker.
I don't see a single pigtail. And that was 400. You cut 400 out in 2 passes.
Right.
So compared to 600, you did 2 passes on 600 too. So if your 400 is perfect, sanded, like I said, where you can see your reflection in your knuckles, you can easily cut it out. So I'm perfect. Let's go straight to the hand polish and then go straight into the yellow and brown. But while he's hand polishing, I'm going to explain what he's doing. So the hand polish, always make sure you shake it up real good. We're not going to use a lot because we don't want it to get super thick. And at the same time, we're not putting a ton of pressure. All we're doing is trying to get some of this excess compound off. So when we go to cut the next stage, it'll make it that much easier. And now I don't also wipe the hand polish off. We're actually going to cut right over the top of it. But with our yellow and brown, make sure it wasn't a buff that you were doing yellow and green in. Make sure that, what's I going to say, you rake it out really good because you want that yellow buff to be really nice and soft. If the yellow buff isn't soft, it's going to scratch in this stage too, much like the orange and brown did. As you guys know, I don't rake my cut buffs except for when we get into this show level. So orange and brown, I didn't rake it out because all we were doing was cutting through all the pigtails and all the sanding. But now that we're through all that, we want to start softening those hash marks up. So I explained this to Nick earlier that all we got to do is make sure that all the excess compound's gone. We're not looking for anything more than that. So all we're looking, all that compound is gone. We're completely covered. There shouldn't be anything excess there. So now when he grabs the yellow buff, he's gonna rake it out really good. I'll grab you your rake. We wanna make sure that that rake is really nice and soft so that we're not scratching anything up. Because now when we go across this, we're just gonna come right across the top and you're gonna see it start perking up and getting close. I'll actually bring you guys in a lot closer while he's cutting it to show you how much more clarity comes through in that yellow and brown already before we even start getting into our untreated white and show brown. Now I explained to him when the buff stops, always check it to make sure it's fluffy and there's nothing scratchy left in there. We're good?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so this is really getting some crazy clarity now. I don't know if it picked it up in the camera when we were sitting there, but I don't know what you think, but this is way darker than it was at the 600. I mean, we're really now starting to see it really poking through.
No, I agree. I mean, that was one thing, you know, while I'm here learning, I'm looking at specific things, especially as you're showing me what to do here, and I can absolutely tell the difference.
So one thing that I haven't told a whole lot of people in my YouTube videos yet is one of those things that I refer back to that Metal Polisher's Guidebook is less compound more often will give you a better finish. So one thing I've been leading across all day is compounding more often but less of it. I don't know if the camera's picking it up when he's putting the compound on, but he's not really laying it on thick and building a huge head in these, especially as we get softer in the grit. Like the purple, you hardly used any at all when we got to that point, and you put it on multiple times to get across to the top.
Right.
And less compound more often means you're going to leave less hash marks, and that's the key as we go along. The orange and brown, you saw he was compounding every 2 to 3 inches, then it was every 3 inches, and now with that yellow and brown, you were like every 4 to 5 inches,
Yeah.
give or take.
Yep.
And now, when we get down to the untreated white and the show brown next, it's really going to be significantly less. It's almost going to be 6 inches at a pass before he's got to recompound. And then as we get into the white and the show green, and then the white and the purple, it's going to be significantly less because it's just going to keep covering more and more. But now between the regular brown and the show brown, regular brown is roughly 380 grit, right? And the show brown is about 800 grit, 900 grit, right around in there. So we need to clean this brown off again to make sure we don't contaminate it with the show brown. So now we're just going to go really light once again. And that's all we're going to do is just hit it real light. We're not putting a whole ton of pressure on, just kind of lightly wiping across it, keeping it thin. We don't want to get too thick because otherwise that too will clog up the pad. And then I think I have, yeah, I got your white and show brown set up ready to roll.
And the first time you were showing me this, with putting the hand polish on lightly, was also trying to break that start and stop line that I got going where we're not picking up. Obviously we're wiping to not pick up any of that compound in the middle, but the edges as well along the bottom, like where I'm going to start.
Yep.
You were telling me to kind of break that line, get rid of that line at the top and bottom.
Yeah, because the rouge will actually spray off behind, and you don't want to pick that up in your next buff because then you're putting that 380 grit into your next buff. But anytime you're using a new buff, always check it, especially in these softer grits, to see if they need raked. If they don't need raked, don't rake them unless you're on your white and purple and it's like scratchy. But if it doesn't feel scratchy, don't rake it at all. I tell everybody, you don't have to rake it if you haven't over compounded it. White and show brown feels good?
Yeah.
Sweet. Show the camera this one.
Yep.
We'll get rid of the regular brown. So this one's just an untreated white. This one we're actually going to run at about 2200 RPM. We want it a little bit faster because we still want it to be able to do some light cutting. But you're going to see a real transformation on this one. This one's really going to get clear. Slow and consistent. Consistency and speed is key. He's really watching for his rouge line to die out and start to dry the pad out. Once his pad dries out, he re-rouges and keeps moving. Just like that. Beautiful. Look at that. You see the truck and the reflection there already. All right, so this is the white and show brown. There's quite a bit of clarity there. The hash marks are getting really light already. If you look at the reflection is crystal clear. The hash marks are still pretty decently heavy. I mean, just remember, we're still at the cut stage right now, so we're getting close, but look at that clarity. That is absolute clarity already. So now we're gonna lightly clean, and with the light cleaning, we're actually going to wipe part of this off this time, because we don't want that to be really thick, because we don't want it clogging up our white pad. And now anytime we stop to re-rouge on this one, we're gonna rake our white buff, because we don't want it to get scratchy. I'm just gonna put a little bit of the aluminum polish on. Now, if you were to clean between your show polish, the show green and the purple, what you would do is you would use chrome polish in between there, because the aluminum polish would actually be too aggressive. It would scratch your stuff once you get past the show green. So the show green is the furthest you could go with the hand polish. After that, you would have to drop down to a chrome polish so you have something softer. So now he's going to take a relatively clean towel and we're just going to wipe a little bit of it off to lighten it up, because we don't want it super thick. I don't want it to clog up my actually this next step we use a 40 ply white flannel with the show green. But as you notice, he's not scrubbing to get this off, he's just lightening it up so that it's not so thick and heavy. Like I said, this one's the standard 40 ply. If you see it, yeah, there you go, 40 ply. Yep. Gonna rake it out real good so we get it nice and soft in the show green. Yep. In this step, normally I run my 40 ply at about 1800, but when I'm doing my show finish like this, I'll actually run this one at about 2200 yet, because I still want to build up a little bit of heat and keep working it. It's when I get down to my purple that I'll drop down to about a 1500 to 1800. is getting crazy clear. Look at how light those hash marks are. Super, super light. That's a reflection of his truck that he brought. We're gonna polish that up tomorrow and finish training. But look at how clear that is. That clarity is ridiculous. The hash marks are getting super, super light. Can actually read what's on the wall over there. So we're getting a really, really clear finish. Now that was the show green. Now there's one more step yet, and we're gonna go with this one. Super soft white with the purple. And this is gonna be the final step. So, and once again, this one we only rake if it's scratchy. Purple, yep, perfect. Should still be pretty good, huh?
Yep.
That one, when you rake, it likes to fly apart. And like I said, this one's at about 1500 RPM. It doesn't take a lot of that purple. That purple sticks in the pad pretty decent when you're applying it. As soon as you start running it, it dries out. But now you can't really see where this one is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna give you the marker. Because I don't know if you've seen it before, when I marked it with the marker and you buffed across it, it took the marker clear off. Did you see that?
No.
So I actually put the marker right there where you stopped.
Yeah.
When you buffed across the marker, when you came back down, it took the marker right off. So that's my little cheat code when I'm doing stuff like this. I just keep that marker in my pocket, and where I stop, it's hard to see. Like,
Right.
you'll see when he's going, you're gonna have a real hard time because there's not really any kind of rouge line. So you'll watch pretty close, but as soon as he stops, watch where he stops. I always take a marker and just mark where I stop. But when I'm doing my final pass, I start 2 inches above that mark and swing underneath it and then bring it back up. Yep.
Okay.
And when jumping from show green to show purple, they're not a whole lot different. So you don't necessarily have to clean in between as long as you didn't leave compound behind, right?
Yeah.
So if there was compound behind, we would use chrome polish to wipe it off. And then you would try to clean as much of that hand polish off from the chrome polish as possible because you don't want any of that contaminating your buff. But if you push too hard, you're gonna scratch it. So it's a double-edged sword. So I just try not to clean in between the two.
Okay.
That was perfect. That was right when your buff dried out. That was perfect.
Which is still an ongoing battle when you get to this level.
Yeah.
Without this sharpening trick, when you asked me where I dried out on that side, I was looking for it behind the buff, but you kind of laughed and were like, yeah, it's really hard to see.
It's super hard to see, yeah. I tell everybody, even for myself, 24 years in, it's really hard for me to see. I honestly still do the marker trick myself, just because if I go to purple, which is pretty rare, because most guys, as you've seen, purple takes forever to do,
Right.
like especially on something big,
Right.
and it's expensive, and the buffs that you use, this white buff here, is super expensive. So as you get to this level, it has to come with a cost. So like if you're not doing it for money, why are we doing it, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're just doing it for fun, for your own stuff, cool, you can do purple till your heart's content. But as soon as you put a wash mitt on that, it's gonna scratch. Like, that's how perfect this is at this point. So yeah, without the marker, I wouldn't know where I'm at when I'm doing the purple, because it's so clear. I can see a little bit of difference between right there where he finished and where he's got to go yet. But you really have to search for it. If you don't have that marker in your pocket where you can mark it real quick when you stop, to refine that, it's such a subtle difference in color, you'd never find it. Some people wouldn't.
Right, right.
actually spray off behind you. Beautiful. I'm gonna bring you guys in so you guys can see this. This is pretty cool. Look at how clear that is. You can actually see that he has pinstriping on the side of his hood. That's pretty amazing. Hash marks are super, super fine. Honestly, the LED is showing more than what's there. If we walk this thing outside right now, I mean, look at that. I can read what it says on his hat. It's pretty impressive. But look at that clarity. That is crystal clear. All right, come on over here. I want to thank this guy right here, Nick, from Heber City, Utah.
Yep.
Just outside of Salt Lake City. Honestly, he's in my advanced 2-day training course. Show finishing is what he one of the things he wanted to learn while he was here. And honestly, this is some of the nicest things I've ever polished. I would put this up against this any day of the week. He caught on to it really super fast, paid attention. Everything I've thrown at you so far, you've done and excelled. You're starting to see when your rouge is drying out and all that stuff. But honestly, this is the steps. And everybody still keep asking me for the perfect grit to sand with. I'm gonna have to put on another sanding video. Honestly, your first grit gets it smooth. Every grit after makes it polishable. So if you're sanding with 320 and the pits that you want out aren't out, drop down to 220. If 220 doesn't get it smooth, drop it down to 180. Just keep stepping down until you find the grit that gets it as smooth as you want, and then work every step back up until 600 or 400, and then you're polishable. And everything else from there is just polishing. So you're sanding, start where it gets everything out, work it back up to 600, cut and color everything, and you're good as gold. But I want to thank Nick for coming in on this one. Kind of put him in the hot seat, and stay tuned. I think we're gonna shoot a Polisher's Corner podcast tomorrow night after we're done with the training. He's got a pretty exciting story. He's a lot like Flannel Phillip, drives truck. Actually drives this really awesome 359. I'll do a little walk around before the podcast, and put that up on the channel as well so that people can see this thing. We're gonna have it all polished out tomorrow. As part of day 2, we'll bust through all the wheels, tanks, and boxes so you can get through that, and probably the grill. I mean, honestly, the grill looks pretty good already, so it's not going to take much. But thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next one. This is how to show polish aluminum from 400 grit.
Yes, sir.
Sweet. See, nothing to it.
No.